All right. I hope my screen is visible to you guys. Anupam?
Yes, it's visual to us. Yes.
All
Great.
right, let's get started. First of all, warm welcome and thank you for making your time and thanks for making the decision to join this Tech Meetup by Value Momentum. Pretty exciting topic and pretty relevant nowadays. Um, in fact, it's pretty exciting time for us in our human life that we live in this hyper-connected digital world. And this hyper-connected digital world is creating so much of data every single day to the extent where we probably create um, equal amount of data in a single day that we have created last 25, 30 years. And isn't it at that level, it is important to sort of understand what's the sort of significance of the data that we are creating. And more so for organizations across the world, organization from variety of disciplines, and especially we'll talk a little bit about the insurance industry, and that's where we as an organization, Value Momentum, that we focus on. We help insurance companies all over the world, especially in North America, um, to build their businesses to be data driven. And we also help insurance companies here in India as well to help them in variety of their um, data initiatives. And this whole idea is really about how can we leverage enterprise data as well as non-enterprise data, the data that is being generated by customer, by you and me, to be able to then leverage that data and see if that data makes sense for businesses to strive and thrive in this digital world. So that's just sort of context. I'm going to sort of focus on a little bit about what's the context of the data and why that we got to think about the data for businesses, and what does it really mean to be able to think about the data for the businesses, and then what capabilities that we need as an organization to be able to leverage that data, to be able to sort of see the value out of that data, right? And then what are the options that are available to build those capabilities? And those capabilities and options, we call it as sort of that platform. It might be one platform or many platform, but whole idea is if we know and understand the capabilities that we would need as an organization to leverage that data, then we'll be able to sort of think about various options that are available now or will be available in future, so that then we can, as an organization, can make appropriate sort of decisions. And then we, as Value Momentum, as a solutions and services organization, can then be in a better position to sort of help our customers. So that's the sort of whole, the theme of this conversation. I'm going to spend 20, 25 minutes about sort of explaining that, putting that context and why and how. And then Saurav, he's a great veteran and a great data guy. Works with DNB. I'm going to talk a little bit about the specific platform that is called as Snowflake. And you might have heard about the Snowflake. It actually created a history last 6 to 8 months when they gone for IPO in the US. So we'll talk a little bit about this particular exciting platform, and then Satya, one of my colleagues, would then sort of give you a nice, good as a technology demo, maybe specific feature around being able to sort of process semi-structured data, like semi-structured data in the form of JSON or XML and so on and so forth. So I think it'll be worth of your time. So let's have a nice, good conversation. Please do write your questions. So towards the end of the conversation, we will then try and sort of answer. And that's an opportunity for us to also have a little bit of interaction with you. And beyond that, if you need to get connected, definitely we'll try and get connected, right? But before I get there, let's I want to give a little quick idea about who we are at Value Momentum, what do you do, what we do, what kind of business we do for our customers. So we are Value Momentum. We are based in New Jersey, in the United States. We've started in year 2000. We are based our offshore development center based here in Hyderabad. And that's the last 20 years we have been in existence in Hyderabad as well. We've expanded a couple of years back in Pune as our additional development center. And actually, we've started another development center in the off-site development center in the United States as well. There's a place called as Erie on the bank of the Erie Lake, the Erie, Pennsylvania. And our headquarters in New Jersey, Piscataway, also has our offsite development center. So in total, like 2 offsite development centers in the United States, 2 here in India, and we are like 3,600 people. Only pretty much talks about insurance, some amount of banking and finance and healthcare. Predominantly, we help insurance companies in the US in the area of P&C insurance, like property and casualty insurance. In India, we call it as general insurance. So many of the general insurance companies here in India as well are our customers in the last 15, 17 years. And we are very proud to sort of work with them. Many of the insurance companies have been our customer for many years. So it's not 1 or 2. And so in the insurance space, we are sort of a very well-known services and solution provider. In fact, we actually rated top 10 in the US. In the space for insurance servicing and solutions, right? So that's what we are. So let's go and talk a little bit about the context of today's topic of really building the data-driven insurance organization. If you look at, let's just take a little broader perspective of the whole the world that we live in, and maybe narrow down a little bit about the insurance organization. In fact, what we see globally, but it doesn't matter whether in India as well as in the US. In fact, in some of the insurance companies in India, it's probably much more ahead in terms of their data maturity, the analytics maturity, and so on and so forth. But overall, what we see is that almost every organization is going to spend enough efforts and time and investment in really sort of building the data maturity. And when we talk about data maturity, it's really about being able to really build that capability to work on the data that you have in the enterprise, data that you have probably with your partners, with your agents, data that you probably might be collecting from your customers as well, right? So there are a variety of data sources, and whole idea is if you have these data sources, then there has to be a maturity in terms of being able to access those data sources consistently and uniformly when you need it, when you want it, and then being able to sort of process those data sets. And we'll keep a little bit, this question open as to why we go to process this data set. But let's say we got to build the maturity in terms of being able to sort of work on on those data sets, and we'll see the context of that. And so, if you're able to sort of work on the data sets, then there's a possibility of using those data sets and then being able to build this whole idea about being able to predict about your customers, being able to sort of predict in terms of, okay, who could be our customer, who is going to sort of churn next year, who is probably especially in the claims, who is probably sort of going to put the claims next year or next 6 months or so and so forth. There are a variety of analytics sort of prediction that can be done based on this data that you have would be available for you. But analytics is not only about the prediction, but it has a pretty broad spectrum of use cases, and I'm going to sort of show you a few use cases, and then you'll be able to sort of connect it. And that's the sort of first thing that we got to do, is to being able to see what are those data use cases, and then we can link back as to then why we need to sort of make the data available and being able to sort of think about data as an asset for the organization. So let's say, so the whole idea is build that data maturity, being able to sort of get that data, build, the data available for you, then being able to sort of build analytics maturity. But then beyond that, once you have this analytics maturity, you build your predictive models or your prescriptive models, or maybe basic diagnostics model, then you should be able to apply the outcome or the intelligence out of those models for your business value chain within your business value chain, so that your business value chain can then make decisions out of it. It'll be useful for decision making, for say customer service, for maybe claims processing, customer onboarding, maybe pricing and underwriting, and so on and so forth. So what we see is almost all insurance organizations, in fact, for that matter, you can expand. This is a secular need. This is going to be secular need all across the industry, and definitely insurance is definitely is going to be pretty critical in terms of putting those efforts and investments uh, in being data driven. At least take a step forward. And so if you think about this, then what does it mean really being able to build the data-driven organization? So just at the high level, as I told you, it's really about being able to sort of make the data accessible, whether it is enterprise or non-enterprise, whether it is traditional data sets or non-traditional data sets, such as non-traditional data sets could be your forms, data residing on your forms, the PDFs, the text, maybe the IoT devices, your images and the voice and so on and so forth. This plethora of sort of non-traditional data sources are going to be very exciting to be able to sort of see what that data tells us as a story about your customer, about your business, and so on and so forth. So the way we think about this is making the data available, being able to build that analytics maturity, and being able to sort of build that intelligence all across. Now, let's answer this fundamental question as to why we got to think about the data. Meaning, what is that we got to do about this data? The data is more important in this digital world. In essentially, in almost all cases, is going to be really being able to understand our customer, really being able to understand our customer behavior, customer preferences. So as an organization, we'll be able to sort of better service our customers, right? Increasingly, businesses are pretty competitive nowadays. Every business is thinking innovative ways of servicing their customers, retaining their customers, being able to cater to their evolving needs on an ongoing basis. This paradigm is very different compared to like fast 10, 15, 20 years back, when organizations used to think about their own products. We say, okay, we have this 4 or 5 products, go and sell to the customer. Versus now, those 4 or 5 products are not going to be enough, because customer demographics are changing, their behavioral needs are changing, their lifestyles are changing, and the economic, the status is changing. And so what it means for businesses is to think about new products and solutions and services in this evolving and fast growing digital world. And so the whole idea is, if we're able to sort of understand our customers better, then we'll be able to sort of service them better. Then we will be able to sort of think about their needs, their sort of specific personalized products much better. And so in order to sort of understand customer, in order to sort of make decisions about our customers, you got to then think about on what basis that you're going to make the decision. The whole idea is, if you're able to sort of have the data, process it in a manner, if you're able to make decisions across the value chain of the insurance business, then that's the sort of holy grail. That's the way that if you're able to sort of build our data capability, then organizations or insurance will be able to sort of help their customer better. So that's the sort of goal, and that's the sort of context. And in order to sort of build those capability of decision making, or being able to sort of understand our customers, we have this broad spectrum of use cases that we see. And those use cases could be sort of broadly categorized into, first of all, every business has to think about their enterprise reporting. That really talks about what happened in the past. There are various, variety of enterprise reporting. You've got to be able to sort of build capability to be able to understand, have a good view of one particular customer or set of customers, call it as user access. But most importantly, I think most of insurance organizations that we are talking to, they're very interested in really advancing their analytics maturity. And it really starts with really sort of being able to um, uh, predict some customer behaviors, predictive analytics in other words. These are essentially in the area of customer centricity, but we also see claims analytics and actuarial and the underwriting analytics as well as a priority. But 70-80% is all about sort of understanding customer, right? As I was telling you, if you see the whole idea is build that analytics maturity that really starts with what happened in the past, which is descriptive, to what will happen in the future. And if that happens, what should you do? What action that you should do? That's a prescriptive, and so on and so forth, right? So that's the whole concept of, or the context of why we got to think about the the data, being able to leverage that data. Right, so those are the sort of in technical words. These are the sort of use cases that we got to think about when we think about leveraging the data, right? Then the question is what are the, if we need to do this, and probably I talked a little bit about it. Another context from the business standpoint of view. I mean, these are the conversations that are happening in the board meetings, in the CEOs room, is really about how do we, in this competitive marketplace, how do we sort of keep up to the competitive advantage, being able to think about new products and services, being able to sort of leverage the innovations in the advanced technologies to be able to make our business processes more efficient, being more profitable, and so on and so forth. So those are the sort of, at the organization level, what I call it as the nice good summary of the triggers that we see, right? What are the sort of hindering blocks? What is sort of stopping organization or making progress in really being data driven? It's really about this. The data is there in the organization. Some data sets are there somewhere outside of the organization, but they are in siloed. What we need, if we need to sort of being able to work on that data sets, those data sets should be able to for example, the accessible at any point of time, uniformly and consistently. And then we need all those data sets being able to access, and then being able to process those data sets. So what it really means is this siloed data sets are not going to be sort of enough for us to be able to process those data sets for analytics maturity. And that's where we got to really think about the modern data platform, a capability that will enable us to consolidate all those data sets within the enterprise, outside of enterprise, the traditional data sets or the non-traditional data sets. And so what happens is that we know the location, we have ability to sort of access those data sets. Then we can guess those, have those data sets, being able to process those data sets in conjunction, in combination of each other, to draw our analytics maturity. So in a nutshell, what you need is this the basic capability of being able to do the data engineering part of it. So this whole idea about being able to get this data, put that into storage or a data storage, capability standpoint of it, we would call it as a data lake. For the enterprise data warehousing, you've got to be able to have ability to then compute those data sets at large scale. For example, your premium summary report you will need a large compute to be able to run premium summary across the policies that you have, or variety of data reports that regulatory or operating report that you'll have to create. So you need a sort of large compute ability. Then for the analytics, you need the data science ability, which is this, being able to do the feature engineering on data sets, being able to sort of mash those data sets up, being able to then prepare data sets for your predictive models to sort of work against, and so build applications. And more importantly, as you think about data-driven organization, you got to be able to have this capability of being able to share the data, being able to sort of exchange the data. So that's just and not not copying the data, not sharing the data in a traditional manner. In a traditional manner, we used to just, oh, you need to share the data. You necessarily need to copy the data to certain location and then being able to sort of access it. But we got to really think about the more efficient and effective way of sort of sharing the data within the enterprise or outside the enterprise to be able to leverage data as a strategic assets. So those are the sort of capabilities that you need. So in order to sort of have those capabilities, what are the technology options? There are a plethora of technology options that are available. So let's, I have a nice good picture you'll be able to sort of relate to it. And many of the customers that we talk to, it's fantastic way to sort of see, or you have the plethora of use cases. You have the BI and the insights tool that will enable the visualization of those use cases in terms of the outcome or the decisions. Then you have this whole databases. You have the operational databases, you have the non-operational databases, which is, kind of analytical databases, which are really about being able to sort of compute at large scale. And then you got to have a data storage, and then being able to sort of move the data across from the data storage to the compute and back and so on and so forth. Now let's focus a little bit on the analytical databases, and that's where I think it's critical to sort of think about the capability of the analytical databases. Now, analytical databases, as many of you know, and most of you maybe have a good technology background, is those databases nowadays are cloud native databases. Unlike we have seen, in the last decade, it was all on premises. Now it's cloud, and with the obvious reason, because cloud really provides this whole promise of unlimited compute and unlimited store. And you see nice, good, new sort of category of databases that have come up in the last few years, starting with AWS's Redshift, Azure Synapse from Microsoft, Google Query from BigQuery from Google, and most importantly, I think nowadays, Snowflake, which is emerging as a pretty promising sort of analytical database, but more importantly, it really expanded its capability to call it as a data platform itself, which basically combines the ability to do the analytical processing as well as many of the features that sort of we'll talk a little bit about. So that's a sort of gamut of sort of technology spectrum that we got to sort of think about when we think about building capability for the data-driven organization. We as ValueMomentum, as we are helping many of the customers in the insurance space, we have lots of good accelerator to really help advance this journey at a faster pace, whether it is to being able to leverage non-traditional data sets, the data that is hidden in the form of your reports, your PDFs, your text and images, and like KYC documents and voice and so on and so forth, to being able to sort of think about pre-built, ready to deploy models for insurance. And so now that we understand those capabilities that we need, and then to build those capabilities, we seems to have some options. In this particular tech meet, we're going to sort of introduce you, a platform called as Snowflake. And there are equally good platforms that are available in the marketplace, such as Redshift and Azure Synapse and Google BigQuery. And Snowflake as well. And so every platform has their pros and cons, and they are equally good in terms of the speed and the performance, and they basically support all sorts of use cases. But there are few aspects that are very critical to sort of understand, and which we are very excited about when we talk about Snowflake, is this ease of use. And we as technology community, I think that's important. Ease of use in terms of just being able to sort of work on that data set, that platform, being able to take any data set, whether it is a relational data in your columns and tables, or rows and columns, or your JSON or XML, and going forward, maybe image data, right? So do I, as a data engineer, as an architect, or a solution person, do I have capability to be able to then process, being able to work on variety of data sets? I think that's a key consideration when we think about data capability, and Snowflake really sort of stands ahead of rest of the 2-3 options that we have. So it's just that in the context of today's modern data platform, Snowflake is showing a pretty good promise, and that's the sort of whole context talking to you about the Snowflake. And we thought it would be sort of good exchange of information, and a good idea for you guys to sort of get to know Snowflake as a data platform, right? And so on that note, I want to pass it on to Saurabh, which will give a little bit more features and interesting features about a Snowflake platform, and then we'll move on to giving you a quick, nice, good demonstration of how easy it is, the ease of use perspective, and that's the whole demonstration. Ease of use, being able to sort of work on JSON or XML. Well, thank you, and I'll get back to you when I have a chance to sort of answer a few of your questions. But over to you, Saurabh.